from the host, from ICAT part,
From the
maybe I'm
host,
not
yes,
sure.
I think.
I'm not sure. Okay,
Yeah,
let's,
now we have got you.
right. And now I can say I can't share my screen. Noor, is it, or Nafis? Can I share my screen now?
Hello, sir.
I
Yes.
can't share my screen. It seems host disable participants screen sharing. Okay, panel.
Now you can able.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just a second. I believe you can see the screen now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, friends from different parts of the world. And now let me share with you. Appa already explained you a bit, briefed you about the Transition Fund. It's a unique and breakthrough program here in Bangladesh. And we are implementing this program in North and South. And before that, as many of our colleagues and friends from different parts of the country joined and had maybe may not have idea about friendship. Friendship in 2002 started by Rona Khan here in Bangladesh, and 2006 is uh, created is Friendship International, and now in different country we have Friends for Friendship and Friendship entities. And now, before into the presentation, let me have an impression about the country situation. The country in the northern part of the country and southern part, we identified in the red mark, the poverty and disaster risk overlapped each other. So these are the red mark, these are poverty zone particularly, and the red mark, these are also at the same time different disaster uh, appear in those areas every year. Uh, it's including floods, cyclone, cold wave, many things. And you see, this friendship, these are the vulnerable zone for the country. Vulnerable communities live in the blue shade areas, and friendship working exactly in the same area. And so that we are, from the very beginning, we are working for the people, those who are under poverty level, at the same time, those who are impacted by the climate. This is our approach we called CIDRR, Community Initiated Disaster Risk Reduction. We are, we prepare them to fight with disaster. At the same time, in case of emergency, we can't stop ourselves because we need to ensure the relief and rehabilitation to survival is the first condition to utilize their capacity and ability. But the condition itself very much unpredictable and situation day to day deteriorating, so that we need to find an option how to help them to be resilient. And Transition Fund is the idea what Runa Khan mentioned. She started this journey last few years, but the brainchild is formed a decade before during the Sidor period in Bangladesh. And this is just to get an idea, the disaster preparedness capacity is simultaneously fighting poverty and risk. And so that, it's bugging each other. And it's to escape from this poverty and disaster risk is a precondition to utilize the disaster preparedness capacity. And this is, you see, the poverty level itself making people vulnerable. And at the same time, they are exposed to disaster risk and they are depending on aid and relief. And at the same time, if they do not have any economic opportunity to turn about, so they will remain in poverty. And if they remain in poverty, it's very difficult for them to apply their preparedness skill capacity, what we actually train, giving them different tools and techniques. But until unless we help them to be able to fight with their ability, it's not really working. And this is the virtual concept. The people, those are depending on disaster aid and relief, transition fund in between mainstream and dependency of relief. And transition fund containing three major areas. One is economic activities, social safety net coverage or special support, those who they are entitled or eligible, and at the same time access to market. And that we actually draw through poverty mapping. I will unfold this in a minute. In nutshell, the transition fund, what I already explained, they need to form some sort of capital to be in the market, to be in the business, to be in economic opportunity. At the same time, they need to have their access to the mainstream facilities, ability, government support. And if there are any barrier within their community, that need to move so that they can develop themselves to fight with disaster crisis, climate impact. These are many data just to let you know around when we started this journey in 2018, both in North and South, we found 27.2% family using technology tools for their agricultural product. And 10.8% families know about saline or flood tolerant crops. 54.7% they cultivating seasonal vegetables and fruits. So these are long list. I'm not going through, just to giving you an impression, the areas where we addressed. So the intervention we designed economic opportunity, access to government and financial services, and advocacy. And as a result, at the end of 2020, we noticed around the people average income was 16,000 taka, Bangladesh taka, and that increase from agriculture, 36,000 taka. And non-agriculture field like livestock, from 44,000, that increased up to 66,000. And average is increased, from 60,000 to 103,000. And knowledge, is remarkable, very significant. Integrate crop techniques from 15% to 92%. Technology tool use from 27% to 99%. Crop calendar using 5% to 87%. And saline food tolerant 10% to 95%. And not only that, social safety net coverage increased significantly because they need a connections with the local government. We just build the connection. We mobilize local government to identify these pocket area people and to allow them to be entitled under the social safety net coverage. And there are some social issues, which we can't avoid. These are the issues which preventing people to be in the market, to be in the economic opportunity, like early marriage, like dowry, family problem, divorce. We formed civil society at the community level. That civil society we activated. At the same time, we connected them with the legal services so that people, and not only that, then they know their rights. They have some rights within constitutionally. For example, cost land, some other facilities from livestock department, agriculture department, they can have some benefits. So those benefits, you connecting them. And this is the interesting things, the poverty mapping, it's nothing, it's just to identify the barrier in the community, like they don't have bridge to be in the market. This bridge has been built. And those poverty mapping helping people to identify particular geographic barriers within the community. And what we did, we mobilized local government, we connected people with the local government so that they can have those opportunities, facilities, and they can have their market. And the tools we applied in the left-hand side, different vegetables, list of vegetables and the cost of those vegetables, what are the expected profit and how many days needed. These cost and profit analysis, we helping people to understand, and we giving them some handbooks so that they can choose their preferred item to grow and at the same time to learn. And family-wise socio-economic data we collected, and that data help us to for which community, what type of economic activity is needed. And the right-hand side yellow form, this is the family income and expenditure cost, is a tremendous success because when family, each and every family realize what are the income and expense going on in their life so that they can make check and balance that we introduced, and our community-based volunteers helping them if they don't have literate people within the family, and that working very, very well. And the outcome we already mentioned here. I'm not this exhausted list and that I shared with you. In nutshell, if you say this around, we calculate in euro here, 67% income increase is huge. It's huge. 3,390 families status here. And challenge, if you ask me, the three challenges remain. There is unpredictable climate events we can't control. We need to find new options each and every day. Access to market, there are many communities, they are doing very well, but market far away from the community. So we need to find some support from government and other sources to allow people to be in the market. And context specific intervention, the last time where you got the rice growing, this year is not really growing because of the sand and other problems and crises. So these always we need to find some context specific intervention. Maybe in the same Upojila, in few villages, you can apply some ideas, in other villages you can't. That's all from my side, and I'll explain more if you any question raised. Thank you so much.
So I think I should now present our mangrove plantation project, yes?
Yes, I think. Appa,
Okay.
you'd like to add few words, please, before Stephen? Stephen, just a minute. Let Appa add few words. Just an introduction.
You're on mute?
Appa, I can't hear. You are still mute.
No, I'm on mute. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm very happy to welcome also the presenter of our next panel discussion. So mitigation, we heard today our speakers at Gobeshona Global Conference who said that mitigation should be part of locally led adaptation solutions also. And this is what Friendship identified 5 years ago and selected Mangrove Reforestation as its climate mitigation project, though we started the work in 2018. So Friendship initiated its mangrove project along the coastal belt of Bangladesh for the ecosystem balance and to enhance community resilience. The project is very participative with gender parity involving local vulnerable groups in the plantation and its protection against intrusions in the plantations. Awareness raising about climate adaptation and the benefit of the mangroves in strengthening is because benefit of the mangroves is crucial for strengthening the communities, and their awareness is what it needs to be brought to their doorstep. They all know it's important, yet they do not always agree to using valuable lands as future investments. Awareness and deep truth and empathy were needed to make them feel secure and enabling them to trust us and their future. Because there were real challenges in doing this. First, the communities needed whatever land they could use for livelihood purposes. And we were taking this away from them in that sense, Where and how were we to draw this line between immediate livelihood, which they needed, and promise of long-term security and livelihood? This was a big challenge, and we really needed to work very deeply with the communities for this. Then protection and care of mangroves during growth, and finding good, healthy seedlings were some of the challenges that we had. And then integration of the work with the community is long-term. You cannot just go to a community and start working with them and expect them to deeply trust and believe you. They need to see, they need to trust you, and this really works over a period of time. And earning their trust and respect is really essential. And perhaps they did that because they found verity in the work and the way, not only the work, but also the way that we were working. We work also very closely with the government of Bangladesh, the Environmental Ministry, the Forest Department, and without the help and support in that area, it would have been very difficult. And whilst visiting them once, one of them said, and it touches my heart because it was something which just came from spontaneously. They said, you see, we are very happy to work with you because your work is real. And perhaps this is what the communities feel. And today we are the largest private sector mangrove reforestation organization and planning to triple in size, I hope, in the coming 5 years. Our nurseries are also the largest in the country. For today's session on mangrove, I would like to welcome our presentator, Stefan Van Hort, who is the Manager Operations and Partnership from Friendship Luxembourg, and our panelist, Mr. Rakibul Amin, Country Representative of IUCN, and Abdul Mukit Mojumdar Babu, Chairman, Prokriti Ojibon Foundation, today. Thank you very much. After this session, we will open it up. After the two panels, we will open it up for a Q&A for our four speakers. And then I request Professor Selim Ul Haq, Director, International Center for Climate Change and Development, and advisor to Friendship, to say a few words as closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, so I will. Oh, can I please share my screen?
You will be able to share your screen.
Yes. No, it's written host disabled participant screen sharing, so you should allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, check in Mehdi. Banur, can you allow Stefan to share screen?
Yes, sir. We are checking just.
No, still not working.
Stephen, hold a second. I think they are trying.
Okay. Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead.
So thank you. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen. So I will present you the program of mangrove afforestation conducted by Friendship in the southeast of Bangladesh. And as you all may know, mangroves are a really good, efficient nature-based solution to adapt to climate change. And the way Friendship is doing it very locally, with local knowledge and with involvement of local people. So just very quickly to remind you the context of Southeast Bangladesh, even though a lot of the people attending this conference are from Bangladesh, you all know this context, but just to remind you that it's a region that is highly vulnerable to the cyclones and the storms, and this water and these extreme climatic events, they put a lot of pressure on the fragile infrastructure and the embankments, and the erosion of embankments can cause salinization of the cultivation soils, and salinization is reduces the growth of the crops and can induce also health problems. Another problem of this region is poverty and population density. It put a lot of stress on the resources. There are few economic opportunities, lack of environmental awareness, and this region is close to the Sundarbans, which is the UNESCO World Heritage and one of the biggest mangrove forests in the world, and 2/3 of this forest is in Bangladesh. So mangrove forest. Mangroves is a well-known solution to adapt to climate change and fight climate change, because mangroves, they break the waves of the strength of the waves, and therefore they are barriers against embankment erosion and soil salinizations. So mangroves protect human lives, the crops and the buildings and the people living in this region, very flat region. So mangroves, they're also haven for biodiversity, so it's a very rich ecosystem, providing a lot of resources for local communities, from shrimps to fish, fruit, and honey. And also, mangroves are very well known as a mitigation tool because they store a lot of carbon. So, as I said, mangroves is something not new. People from the southeast of Bangladesh, they know mangroves, and it's a very well-known solution, but it's very challenging to plant and restore the mangroves in this region because you need to involve the communities, otherwise the forest can mature, because if you let the land open just to plant trees with no protection, you can see the goats will go into these areas and will destroy the plants, so they cannot mature, and you will never have a mature forest. Another important thing is that you need to have very good technical and agronomic knowledge of what you do. You cannot only do monoculture, plant one species of tree, and you have to follow very specific agronomic conditions. So it means that the trees must be planted densely enough to act as real barriers. If the plantation is not dense enough, it will have no effect on the waves and the water. And every year we have a reminder that cyclones can struck this region, and these embankments are still very fragile, and people need protection against these climate. So Friendship has entered into a very participative approach to allow to do the mangrove afforestation very effective. So we engage the communities in this program. First, we train them in mangrove nurseries, so they know how to collect the seeds, how to plant the seeds and grow the saplings. We engage them in the plantation of the saplings because it first creates ownership. Once you have planted a tree, you are less tempted to cut it down. So it will become their forest. They have planted it, so it's very important. It will be part of their community for the coming years. It's also important to engage the people in the protection of the planted areas. So we select community caretakers along with other community people. They put fences around the plantation areas to restrain the intrusion, especially from the goats. And thanks to our nurseries, we are able to plant 5 different mangrove species. So it will foster biodiversity for in these plantations. The way we engage the communities is something in which Friendship is very strong. We form in each community. We form groups of around 30 people. They are selected and trained to grow the nurseries and to plant the trees. And one group is approximately responsible for 1 to 2 hectares of planted forest. And we put a lot of strong focus on women and most vulnerable people. And from the experience, we can see that the objective of gender parity is well reached, because usually we have more women into these groups because men are often away for their daily work. And these groups are really at the center of the program, because that's where everything happened. We train these people to plant, to do the nurseries, but also they gain capacity regarding how to manage a forest, and also they gain awareness about the benefits of the mangroves. And it's also a kind of forum where we can bring other services from Friendship, and that's where we create the link with the other services from available from Friendship, but also from the government. So mangrove afforestation in this region is not a standalone project. Friendship follows an integrated approach, and because the needs of the people from the communities are not always oriented towards the mangrove forest. They know the use of the mangrove forest, but they might have other needs, such as healthcare. So we create this link with healthcare support, but with also the government social safety net program. Another important aspect in these groups that we create social awareness and protection maps. So with the community people, we draw maps just to really well define where to plant the mangroves. That's important to bring the knowledge of the local people to implement the project correctly and in appropriate areas. Because otherwise the project might not work. If we plant a forest where people access to the river, they will not be happy. So it's important that we take into account their opinions and knowledge of the field. So also it's important that we engage other partners and stakeholders of the project, and especially the Bangladesh Forest Department and the Agriculture Department, because they support Friendship and are resource people to do the trainings on capacity building, trainings regarding the alternative livelihoods. So we train the people and we explain how to cultivate other kind of crops and access to alternative incomes. It's also important that we involve local government and local authorities, because they provide Friendship the land to do the plantation. So they are really key to make the program work, because they have access to the land. And also at the end of the program, they will be the people who will take care that the forest remain. And there are strong laws in Bangladesh about mangroves, because you cannot cut the mangroves. And these local authorities being involved in this project, they will be in a position to better enforce the law and protect the mangrove, because the people of the communities know why they have planted the mangrove. They have gained awareness about the benefits of the mangroves. So after almost 3 years of program, we have learned a lot of lessons. So we know for sure that the engagement of the communities is essential to make this program work. And we know it's working because Friendship has been able to create a relation of trust with the communities. They know what Friendship is doing. It's not a project that is implemented from outside. It's really by Bangladeshi people, for Bangladeshi people. It's local. They know Friendship was present before this project and will be present in this region after this project. So we have really gained trust from the communities, and that's why the involvement is really working. And it's also working because of this integrated approach, and we create links with other services. The decision of making mangrove nurseries was a really good decision, because now we have a lot of saplings waiting to be planted. So we can expand and we can plant much more mangroves, because we have now the resources, which usually are not always available. We plant 5 different types of trees, and so we have the nurseries to provide this. And even after 1 year of project, we can see that these areas provide more resources, just because it's protected from intrusion. Now we have some more grass that can be cut and used for to feed the cattle. Other lessons that is important, I mentioned it before, is access to land. So that's why cooperation with local authorities is really important. Another lesson is that we see that we may want to plan as much as we want. As long as funding is not coming, it will be difficult. But the biggest advantage of the mangrove, as Runa said in the beginning, is that it's not only an adaptation solution, it's also a very strong mitigation tool for climate change, because we know that mangrove stores 4 times more carbon than tropical forests. So it's a really carbon sink to suck out of the atmosphere the CO2. So it's very powerful. So it can be used as a compensation method to mitigate the climate change. So it can be a way to attract new donors wanting to offset their carbon emissions. So that's a new opportunity to find funding also for this adaptation solution. And we have witnessed every year that cyclones remain a very challenging problem, because we had Fanny in 2019, and last year we had the cyclone Amphan, and people know, and they testify that oh, if we had a mangrove at this place, maybe this embankment wouldn't broke. So they know, they have very quickly understood that mangroves can bring a good protection. As a conclusion, we have learned that mangrove afforestation is a win-win program for climate adaptation. So it started with the objective. So Friendship has been able to bring together different stakeholders with maybe different objectives around one central thing, is the mangrove forest. It's a common good for humanity, for communities in Bangladesh. And Friendship has been around to, has been able to bring all these stakeholders around the same objectives. Friendship Luxembourg has been empowered by the Ministry of Environment from Luxembourg, which put some funds available following the Paris Agreement on climate change. And with this funding, Friendship in Bangladesh was able to develop this mangrove afforestation project with the communities to protect the mangroves. And in exchange, the communities, they gained new skills and capacities. We are bringing into this project the local authorities for the land, and they guarantee also after the project, they will guarantee the permanence of the forest. And we engage the Bangladesh Forest Department for technical support. And all these local authorities are also aligned with the national plans of Bangladesh, in which mangrove replantation is really a well-known strategy. So Friendship is really able to make mangrove afforestation effective because we create cooperation. We connect all the stakeholders in a relationship of trust. We act locally for awareness raising. It's based on the needs. We use the local knowledge. And also we can, with the link with the ministry in Luxembourg and different other organizations, we can advocate internationally that this locally led adaptation solution is really working. And now we're in a position also to create new interest with private donors wanting to offset their CO2 emissions. So thank you for your attention, and I hope it was clear enough for you all. Thank you.
Amdad, would you?
Is now I can hear.
Discussion? Yeah. Please now invite the panelists.
Okay, now in the very beginning, yes, Apag, first of all, are you going to invite Mark?
Yes. So I would like to, of course, invite, as I've already said, we would like to have our 4 panelists who I mentioned to be now part of the floor. And will you lead it, Amdad, for the panelists?
Thank you.
Start.
In the very beginning, thank you so much. I will receive some questions and I'll answer those questions in the open discussion forum. And now I would request Mark Elvenger. Mark Elvenger is the co-chair for Friendship International and chair Friendship Luxembourg. Will share his views, and at the same time, Mark Elvenger is a funding, as one of the instrumental to make sure the funding for Transition Fund and all other projects. So the reason behind those interests and what are the ambition and vision within Friendship Luxembourg and Friendship government, Mark is going to share with us. Mark Elvenger.
Thank you very much, Kazi. First of all, greetings to everybody in Bangladesh, where I should actually be since yesterday. But in today's times, nothing is really predictable. And so I'm still a bit stuck in Luxembourg. I hope to be there in 10 days, Kazi. So see you soon, hopefully. Actually, I was asked to speak particularly to the transition program. But actually, I have to say that particularly after having heard Stefan now again, what I'm going to say, I think will apply to a large extent, actually, as much to the mangrove program, which Friendship has started some years ago, than to the experience which we have with the transition program. That program was started approximately 4 years ago with support from the Luxembourg Ministry of Cooperation as a continuation of more traditional disaster preparedness programs, which we had also initiated with support from Luxembourg. but we have other disaster preparedness programs funded from Sweden in particular. So it's not only Luxembourg which is contributing to it. 4 years is not a very long time. And I think there will still be, and the next speaker will be best placed to say more about that. I think there will be a need for more research on this kind of program, both in terms of impact to confirm or infirm, but I hope confirm our view, our findings that it has very strong impact, but then also in terms of what are the main factors of what we consider a real success in these programs. But if I had to formulate a research hypothesis for a researcher on these programs, then I would say that it lies really mainly in unlocking local resources. And when I say unlocking, I think it's an important word, because unlocking means that the resources are actually there. They pre-exist. So it's not for us to create the resources. The resources are there, but very often they are not really used. They don't unfold. They don't have the opportunity to unfold, which means simply that they are wasted. And I think it's really fundamental to put this focus on unlocking local resources. And part of why that was possibly, or I think possibly well done is because there were actually limited external resources available. So when you have limited resources available, you can't just throw money on the problem, but you have to see to use limited resources in the most effective manner, and that you can only do by actually leveraging the resources which are pre-existing. And of course, the very first local resource which is there is the people themselves, the people who are living in these very difficult areas. And it is about unlocking the resource which they represent. And so I won't go, of course, into the program again. Kazi has exposed it, but it is about providing a certain amount of training, providing certain assets in order to get people going when they are in a situation which is similar to after disaster situation. It is about allowing them to access other, again, local resources by making them aware of those resources, by creating linkages with local government authorities. It is about just filling certain gaps also at the infrastructural level. Kazi has given examples about what a difference a bridge can make. So I think that is really the one very important factor, which is to strengthen the people locally. And then, of course, it is about mobilizing the resources available at local government level. So it's allowing access to what exists as a social security net, even if it is limited, but there are resources there. There are training resources from the local government authorities. There are budgets which are actually in the national budget for these areas, but it is about making sure that they reach the areas. And for that, again, it is all about creating these linkages. So I think unlocking local resources, but that, of course, that requires a lot of flexibility. It requires flexibility, it requires pragmatism, it requires listening and looking and not coming with preset solutions, but as it has been have said several times, to really look into what are the needs, listen to the people, and then build their own. In friendship, that's of course circumstantial a bit, because every organization has its own setups, but in friendship it required a strong cooperation between, in particular, three sectors, which were climate action on the one hand, disaster preparedness, and then sustainable economic development. But there also, again, much flexibility within the sector itself, because, for example, more traditional microfinance solutions will often not work when you are working with extremely poor people. So you have to accept, for example, also in certain circumstances, simply asset transfer, which has nothing to do with charity, but which has simply to do with allowing people to get a start. So climate action, sustainable economic development, and then very importantly, in what we call inclusive citizenships, which is rights and access to resources from government, what exists locally. So I think this flexibility, pragmatism are core. But what is then also required is the flexibility of the funding resources, even if they are limited, which you have available. And there, I think we were just, in a way, lucky. I will share with you, I will in the chat box, an article which Runa Appa and one of our French colleagues and myself have written in a French quite well-known review, Alternative Humanitaire, and where we have focused the fact that in particular from Luxembourg, we have resources available which don't make the traditional distinction between humanitarian aid on the one hand and development aid on the other hand, because we are here in an area where this distinction doesn't really work, because working with ultra poor communities in very climate exposed areas is actually not far from rehabilitation work, but on a long-term track. And we were able to access this type of resources from the Luxembourg Corporation. The European Union speaks a lot about bridging the gap between humanitarian aid and development aid. I think there is progress, but there is also still a lot of work to be done. But I hope that in the future there will be more of these kind of resources available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. You unfolded my presentation very nicely, unlocking resources, connecting opportunities, very well defined. Now I would request Dr. Nazdeen Ahmed, and many of you already know her as a very renowned economist in country, and she's senior research fellow with the Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies. Please, Dr. Nazdeen Ahmed, say your views.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Friendship for inviting me to share my views on a very important topic. First, I would like to express my limitation of my knowledge in terms of this mangrove plantation and all this technical aspect, because I'm an economist, and I'll talk more from economic point of view, how I see Friendship's activity. So when I was listening to Amdab Bhai's presentation, I was just thinking that why was it necessary to have this initiative in the very first place? Because government has various programs, government has its agricultural extension division, government has its administrative setup and emergency relief funds and all those things. Then why at all this initiative was necessary? So when I was asking this to myself, and then I was thinking, what happened, what used to happen before in these areas before Friendship was there, because I did not know about this, about their activities. Usually when we look at the relief activities after any disaster, the first thing is the immediate action, that there was a big gap in that, because it takes some time, even if there is emergency relief fund and all those things. Another thing is customized need. I mean, though a flood in northern area or a cyclone in southern area, they don't create similar type of disaster because of the impact, because of the situation that was there before this disaster. So we need customized action. And when I was listening to Amdaz Bhai's presentation regarding the impacts, maybe we can have further analysis and studies on why this impact happened and what were the conditions that were prevailing. But one thing is was clear from his presentation is that it's the group activities who knew the area, who knew the realities in that society, and who knew the needs of the people in that area that actually worked. So I think that is very important when we are trying to both taking initiatives for adaptation and mitigation of the climate disasters. Some of my activities in the southern part, some of my research on the agriculture in the southern part of Bangladesh, in the Khulna, Bagherhat, Jhinada area, where I was looking at women in agriculture. And there we found that many realities about the impacts of the climate change. And in that case, they need, when women are eager to participate in economic activities in a more commercial way, not the livelihood agriculture, but the problem is linking them with the market. And when there is a disaster, this becomes even more difficult. Some of my activities, some of my research in the northern part of Chor areas, those who know about Chor, it's like islands. There we have found that because of the lacks in communication, road transport, or even water transport system, it becomes very difficult for them to survive. And in some cases, it's not really sudden flood or sudden cyclone. It's like every year in the Haur area and in some Chor areas, the land goes underwater for 3-4 months. And, people need to prepare themselves for that. And in Rangpur areas and Kurigram areas, especially in the Chor, I have seen that government had once this program of Chor livelihood program, which was a 15 years program that did wonderful work. But when any project that is ended, many of the knowledge, we don't really continue that. So under the Chor livelihood program, I went to some islands in Kurigram 4-5 years back, and I found that they developed this plinth, so that the land was the houses were built on a plinth, so that those do not go underwater during the flood. So you don't really have to build the houses every year. So I think when Friendship is doing wonderful work in terms of helping the people in a transition time, but I think some of the disasters or some of the problems which are arising every year, they can have this kind of initiative which will give kind of sustainable adaptation possibilities, so that like the houses built on an land that is upgraded, that is on a plinth, or I have seen that people having the livestock and then support for livestock rearing, those really work well when we see those kind of programs. So I think this kind of initiative can be a very good complement to the government system, what the government is doing, especially to have customized program for people of different areas. So it's not like one size fits all. So that's why I think the group work that has been developed or initiated by Friendship, I think if they can have customized system of working with people of different areas, I think they can even have more positive outcome. And I think they need further studies to see how this kind of programs can be replicated in other areas, and in the areas where it's not sudden disasters, but when the areas which are lowland and with the salinity and all those things, how we can work for them. As, for example, in one of our study, we found that in the southern part of Bangladesh, in I think it was in Shamnagar, Khulna, so far I remember, there were some areas where they have this tiger widow, Bagh Bidhoba, because some of their household members, they go to Sundarbans for collecting honey and others, and many of the male, they're mostly men, and when many of them are, you know, like I mean, this is kind of an you can call it accident or a disaster, because they are killed by the tigers or others, and then all these widows, they don't have any livelihood, and for them uh, the livelihood means are very much necessary, because many of them do not have access to economic activities or others. So these Bagh Bidhoba or tiger widows, that is a community who are very vulnerable with their children and others. So there are some this kind of pocket communities where I'm sure there are some of them are also in Haur areas, Chor areas, in hill tracts. So I think we can design specialized program for those, so that that can help them for survival. So I congratulate Friendship for doing wonderful work, but I think now there's it's time to scale this up, and to see how those can be replicable, those can be expanded to other areas in Bangladesh, and not only for the sudden disaster prone disaster affected people, but also in the region where which are regularly under different kinds of vulnerability. And I think a good study can explore how it can be scaled up. Thanks a lot for giving me opportunity.
Excellent, excellent. Very nicely pointed out, Dr. Nazinapa. That is, the areas you identified truly should be will be our priority in next days, upcoming days, and definitely we'll work with BIDS and EU to take forward those suggestions. And the one most important thing actually mentioned is not only disaster-prone areas exclusively. There are some other vulnerabilities need to address through this approach, and definitely we will be we are interested to join with you to find study and options and ways for a better solution. Now we will invite Mr. Rakibul Amin, who is the country representative of IOC in Bangladesh, and at the same time a very renowned nature-loving person, researcher. Dr. Rakibul Amin, please.
Thank you, Ahmed Bhai. I think you exaggerated it a bit in my introduction, but anyway, it's nice to hear some praises. And congratulations to Friendship, especially Runapa and her team for doing wonderful work. I had an opportunity to visit Gaibanda. I was on my personal trip, and on the way, I contacted Emdad Bhai and asked like whether I can stop by at Gaibanda, and then he showed me your beautiful Friendship Center in Gaibanda, and also had the opportunity to go to a shore to see some of your work. And I saw the plinth the village was built on, that Dr. Nazneen was just mentioned. So it's great to see that in the continuation of good work from previous project. And Dr. Nazneen has pointed out a very interesting and very important point. In any project, the least importance given to the knowledge capture part or communication part. We suffer for it. I guess many of us, many of our development workers or the organization also having this, intentional and unintentional problem. I think this is the most important part of capturing knowledge, so that when the project is finished, the knowledge is there or the information is there for somebody else to use. And many cases, what happens is when we go to start a new project or new program in an area, we sometimes have to start from the scratch, which is very unfortunate. And it's kind of wastage of time, wastage of resource. I think this is This is where when Dr. Ahmed Bhai, when he was presenting some of the data, this is very important that we capture our impact. And we also have what you call MEL, monitoring, evolution, and learning. The learning part is very, very important, which is sometimes ignored. Um, just to mention the transition fund, the concept itself, I find it so exciting. It's very pertinent and very I mean, I would say it's an excellent idea, because you're not concentrating on the charity part, rather, as Mark has mentioned, that unlocking the resources, I would say unlocking the potential. It's more of like a transition support, or a support to go through the transition from the vulnerability to capacity. I mean, this is wonderful concept, and more we should replicate this concept in all our activities. Uh, and in terms of, as Dr. Nazin has mentioned, like how you're designing our project, I think the system approach and trying to understand the system, not only the social system, especially I'll come to the point in the mangrove, it's also an ecosystem, it's a system, but connected to that is the social, political, economic system. Unless we understand the full gamut of it, just trying to, trying to rectify one part of it is not going to solve the whole problem. I'm sure you do that. It's just, since it's an open discussion, I'm trying to emphasize this point again and again. And in terms of, impact analysis, this is very important in the sense that all the interventions we are doing, we need to regularly check whether things are okay, whether the impacts are coming in the right way, whether they have been thought about. And we had a long program in Shamnagar, and we found we had 16 small grants. Again, very similar concept that you are working, engaging the local partners, engaging the local community to do small projects up to 25,000 US dollar. And we found wonderful results. But we also wanted to know what actually happened in terms of income or in terms of other social indicators. And we engaged a team of young economists, and under the supervision of a Sandy experts, Dr. Inam, Dr. Sodamini Das, and few other. At that time, I was based in Bangkok, so it was easy for me to walk through an international network. But if I do it now, I'll go to Dr. Nazdin, so and BITS. So we found the concentration of program is very much important than the variability or the variation of programs. So if you do 16 types of activity versus 2 but highly concentrated activity, the concentrated activity will give you more benefit than this. There's a variety of program. So that was an important lessons learned for us. Again, in a similar way, when we are doing the mangrove plantation, which I find is an excellent what we are doing, and we need more mangrove plantation in that vulnerable area. It's a natural infrastructure. We started this MFF, Mangrove for the Future, in 2006 after the tsunami, with the concept of mangrove provides you a natural infrastructure. If you remember at that time, in DRR international debate, this Build Back Better in natural infrastructure was a buzzword, which then eventually evolved into resilience, which I also found a very interesting pathway to understand a system approach. And the Stockholm Resilience Center, we work with them, and rather, I mean, we inform our activity, and we kind of inform the wayfind the latest publication from our experience in Shamnagar. But again, this is something like you can also explore. There are 7 principles of resilience building. I mean, from an academic point of view and a practical point of view, and the work you are doing in friendship, what I've seen in both Shamnagar and Gaibandha, I think this is an excellent case study that you can develop. Coming back to the mangrove, it's a science is easy. I think the politics and the social part and the economics part is more difficult. Is the tenure is of course the center of the problem, whose land it is, and if you have a different defined tenure, whether you will be able to sustain it. But in many cases, it's not the community who is destroying the forest. It's not the community doesn't have that awareness. Awareness is not enough because most cases, and not most cases, in every cases, the mangrove destruction is caused by the elites. By which is an typical elite capture scenario. The elites in the locality, elites sitting in Dhaka and far away. So even international trade, for example, the biggest mangrove killer is the shrimp farming. And the supply chain of the demand is coming from the Western world, and also, of course, affluence in our own country. So it's a little complicated issue rather than just working with the community right-based approach. So you need to understand the whole the social politics, the political economy behind this mangrove plantation and the demand coming from the shrimp and crab. Now it's crab. The shrimp has gone to crab farming. Another interesting comment that what I have witnessed during my work in the Shamnagar is that, you know, as you rightly said, if you provide some protection, the natural system takes in what we call an assisted regeneration of mangroves. And what you do is you cover with the net, it nets the area so that it allows the natural regeneration. And the goats are the main predator or as a grazer. And interestingly, the goats are given by maybe some other NGOs as a livelihood program. So there is a clash because they were complaining, good, you are doing mangrove, but our goats are going hungry because you are not allowing them to graze in your field. So this is dichotomy within the society, like you're doing good, but in a way you're also doing harm. But I mean, where are we standing? So there's a, you know, this coordination is an issue, and also maybe trade-off. And lastly, I would say, I mean, IUCN has last year launched a nature-based solution and a global standard. What you're doing, many of it can be fit into this nature-based solution, but it's not only just plantation. I mean, what we call is a co-benefit of nature conservation and development, or the development which has a co-benefit of biodiversity conservation. So we can discuss more of it. Dr. Salim is organizing a session tomorrow. We'll be organizing a session, I think, day after. So there's a lot to discuss. So last, congratulations again, the wonderful work you are doing. Heartfelt thanks for inviting me, and thank you very much, and good luck.
Excellent. And you are now giving a clue for several sessions, different conflicting issues. You know, economies has different perspective, the local, global, political, social. So definitely, and we trying to address those issues like goat. We are giving some opportunity people to take grasses from our field, and at the same time, we are exploring if scientists come up with some other solutions. We know they're both important. So hoping we'll find many more opportunities to talk to you and with the scientists, to find new avenues to take our journey forward. And now I would like to share with you that globally, there's a big question how we can connect the mass people for nature, for climate, for our environmental issues. And the media only can connect us. And in Bangladesh, we have now own National Geography. This is Mukit Mojumdar Babu. He created so many avenues to connect mass people and to make responsible the media people for nature. And he created Nature and Life Foundation. And now a television channel called Channel I. Each and every news, they have a separate segment for nature and life. Wonderful, and credit goes to Mukit Mojumdar. And now let me welcome Mukit Mojumdar Babu to share his views, how really we can connect more and more through your venture.
Thank you. Basically, media has a great role to play because, as you know, the awareness, what we are doing here in Bangladesh, the main problem is the educated class. I mean, I don't think that's a big educated class in Bangladesh. So it's a visually when we can say something and we can show the things on TV or mass media, like, social media and other media, print media, that basically uh, gives a straight communication with the grassroots people. So awareness for climate change through media. Mass media is to inform and educate the people, and awareness is the key to reduce the impacts of climate change. Media plays vital role in creating awareness about climate change, especially communication of climate change knowledge from scientists and policymakers to the public via the mass media has been a subject of major interest because of its implications for creating national variation in public understanding of a climate change issues. Media like TV, radio, newspaper, and online media spread the news and information at the speed of a light. We can make a difference by spreading the knowledge of adaptation in our country. Communication for mangrove plantation and conservation. Mangrove plantation has been proved a great climate solution all over the world. We are very fortunate to have natural mangrove in coastal zone of Bangladesh, but those are not enough. We need coastal zones of Bangladesh, but those are not enough, as we need more plantation. We need to communicate with more people to expand our coastal green belt in a sustainable way. Due to its social responsibilities, different types of communications media need to come forward with this issue. The role of mass media in shaping public understanding of climate change issues will help to combat of the serious problem in human history. Central plan for mangrove plantation. Achieving sustainable mangrove plantation is a challenge, as well as the funding for the running activities. Most of the mangrove restoration projects are scattered, which are implemented by Bangladesh Forest Department and various NGOs. I hope a central plan can be useful in this context. Mangrove restoration programs are continuous process, so forest department need to do a central plan, and accommodating development partner and NGO can help in selecting plant species, suitable coastal and sustainable livelihood for community people. It would be a great to make a single platform to achieve plantation success and flow of sufficient fund. Sustainable resources harvest and responsible tourism. We need to formulate our activities based on our sustainability. This is very important to combat climate change and achieve SDG, sustainable resources collection, is top priority now, because responsible tourism is the responsibility for both visitors and hosts to ensure sustainability, which is addressed and maintained. A responsible tourist will make decisions based on what is best for the local communities in the long term, making sure that the action based on those decisions have positive impact on those communities. Mangrove plantation activities of friendship. I'm really glad to know the mangrove plantation activities of the Friendship in coastal zone of Bangladesh. Friendship initiated mangrove reforestation for the ecosystem and community resilience. Planting mangrove trees in tight exposed mudflats is a way of restoring a natural ecosystem. 5 different mangrove species have planted to forest biodiversity to fulfill the basic needs of poor beneficiaries. Other sustainable livelihood and health services has also introduced in the project area. I hope the work will continue in future to ensure a better life in balanced nature. Basically, the things what friendship is doing, it's a great work, I would say, and which started long back, and also, our father of nation, he was very keen to do this coastal area plantation, mangrove plantation, and he visited those places when he was in back in 72, 73, when he was in power. However, so we can see that how Sundarban is saving us from all the cyclones, this Ayla, Sidor, all whatever we had earlier, and this Sundarban saved us from all these disastrous cyclone. So coastal area, if we want to save the people, poor people in coastal area, definitely we have to increase the plantation. And that is a great work what friendship is doing. So definitely in our part, what we are doing, awareness and other activities, will be always with friendship, and definitely we look forward to work together. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I believe your recommendation truly is a timely recommendation to bring in government, NGOs, development partner in a common platform to take our proven experiences forward. And we hope to be able to working with you and to bring media, the private sector and others for the journey. Now I request for a minute Runa Khan to say about few words about the private sector's involvement in our mangrove programs. Then we'll go for the open discussion.
I think Mr. Rakib wanted to say something. Mr. Rakib, please
Oh,
go ahead.
okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
sent
you.
up that.
I just forgot to mention one thing that I think during the presentation on mangrove, the presenter mentioned about the private sector involvement. I think you have great potential. There's a model going on in Kolkata, just right over our border, with Danone. You know, Danone, one of the biggest, company for working with milk products. So they are doing massive scale, community-based plantation. So you can look into it, how are doing it, what are the challenges. And Wetland International, one of our partners in Indonesia, and Flores Java, they're also doing mangrove plantation with the private sector. But what they have found, because of the tenure issue, is a more complex tenuring than our Bangladesh. They are bought of land, and they allow private sector to plant, so that there's a sustainability is there. Maybe it's not done in Bangladesh, maybe something like you can also think of. I don't know. I mean, it's too early to say whether it's a good or bad, but at least in terms of creating conservation space, this is not a new concept. Conservation International used to do that and still do that in the US, but it also has own controversies, and also benefits. So these are the two words I would say that.
Thank you very much, Rakib Bhai. I would really like to see how we can look into this a bit deeper. And of course, we have a system which seems to work, but I don't consider a project deep and true till it has proven itself over 10 to 15 years. And I think that has happened to all our other projects, and these are the two new projects. But you see, they are building on the strength of our existing platform, and acceptance and trust is a very big factor, I think, for the success of these two projects that we have done. But transitional funding is direct impact. This is an incredible incredible scaling opportunity. Mangrove, of course, has their challenges, but you're very right. And the government, I think, is realizing, and the private sector is what we are actually aiming at, and we might have a little surprise next time we are in a conference as to what we are doing with them. And so thank you very much for your suggestions. And Dr. Nazneen, thank you for what you've said. And Mr. Mukeet, I hope that we'd all be able to link together and even after the conference and work together towards, I think what we're all striving to do, improve the state of the vulnerable in Bangladesh. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Appa. We received some questions through question answer tab, and we replied, and me replied, and my team also working for answering questions. So that we, before concluding by Professor Dr. Salimul Haq, as Nazdin Appa raised about the plinth issue. So I would like to share a glimpse of our plinth, those who actually raising in different parts of northern part. Please share the plinth photos. Just for a few seconds, just to get an idea how we developing plinth for the displaced people at the same time as a flood shelter. This is an oval shape, and 30 family can stay here for longer period. And in the flood time, around 200 family more than with their cattle and belongings, they can stay here. Uh, these people, we connect them with the livelihood opportunities, the community center there, school building there, health facilities here. So it's oval shape. It can the water can't break it. So, this is very safe and secured. Around 18 already constructed in northern Gaibandha and Kurigram areas, and proven example as a place for displaced people within the community, around community. This is an idea to share. And now I would also share with you another idea, that is the mangrove nursery is in south. So we have already planted 200,000 tree, and our now, as you know, we have the largest private nursery, the NGO nursery in Bangladesh for mangrove, because we have no other, we had no option, no choice to get saplings. So we had to start nursery to get saplings, and we actually at this moment uh, using those saplings for our plantation program. And we are open for anyone we can support. This is again a plinth photo, in the emergency situation. Thank you so much. It's already time flies. Now I request Professor Dr. Salimul Haq for his concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amdad and Runa and all the presenters and speakers for a very, very interesting session. I am not an expert in the kind of work that you have been doing either on the development side or on the mangrove side. So I've been listening, fascinated by the experts' talk. What I will do is share a little bit, maybe three issues that come from the climate change world, which is the world I belong to, and provide you with some guidance on how to engage with that world. It's a very different world. Okay. First of all, it's a global issue. Climate change is global. It's happening at planetary scale. And one of the challenges that we have, and that is why we have created the Gobeshona, is how do you link something that is at global scale with very tiny little locations in particular parts of the world where poor people are living and facing the consequences. They're connected, but it's not easy to make those connections. Number one, scale issue. From small scale to big scale to huge scale, planetary scale. The second scale issue is the time scale. Climate change is not a disaster. It's not a cyclone. Climate change is more and more cyclones will happen over the next 10, 20 years. More and more floods will happen. Sea level will rise. Salinity will increase. But it will happen over 10, 20, 30 years. So the time scale involved in climate change is not a very short duration time scale, although there are short duration implications, like cyclones will get more severe, salinity will become more severe, etc. So measuring progress or tackling climate change cannot be a very short time scale issue. So the implications for organizations like Friendship, who are very involved in working with communities already, you have a long history of this and you have a long, well-established capacity to do this. If you want to now link your work with this global problem of climate change, you have to take these two scale issues into account. And the consequence of taking these two scale issues into account are, firstly, on the geographic scale. Simply doing a few things in a small places in Bangladesh, even if you have few 100,000, is not going to solve the problem. Okay, it is a very important contribution, but you have to link it with everybody else. You have to link it with the government. You have to link it with other international actions, organizations like IUCN. You know all this, so I'm preaching to the converted. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just speaking about how does one do this. So one thing is, you cannot do it, a single organization, no matter how big and strong it is, cannot do it alone. It's not possible to do it alone. You have to do collectively. You have to find allies. You have to find people that you can work with, research community for knowledge, practical NGO community for working, the communities on the ground, private sector, government agencies, and so on. So collective effort, finding allies, working together. The second implication is that short duration projects are really not a suitable tool for a climate change program. Climate change programs, if you want to use the word climate change in your program, I tell this to a lot of donors and a lot of organizations that are now sort of getting on the climate change bandwagon, as it were. A 3-year project is not a climate change project. I'm sorry. It just is not. 3 years, nothing's going to happen to do with climate change. You can do a lot of good things in 3 years, but you're not doing anything on climate change. You need 10 years, you need 15 years, you need 20 years programmatic approach. This is both for the donors who are funding you to understand. They cannot just label the money they're giving you for climate change and give it for 3 years and say they're giving you climate change. That doesn't count. I tell this to donors regularly. A 3-year program doesn't count. You're not doing climate change. You're mislabeling it. It's a misadvertisement. Okay? Climate change, if you want to do climate change, come for 10 years, minimum 10 years. And you commit for 10 years, and the 10-year investment has to be a learning by doing process. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. What we're going to have to learn, we're going to have to take it step by step and develop our own capacity to learn and adjust and adapt. And one of the things I like about Friendship is that is already part of your DNA. That's what you do, which is a good thing. So you are well on the way to doing this. So the way forward, therefore, in my view, needs to be a somewhat longer term perspective in which a new dimension comes in, which is not a traditional dimension, but again, something, this is not new for you, but it's something that I would emphasize focusing on a bit more, which is the younger generation. Okay, so the climate change issue is two parts of the issue. One is dealing with the problem now with the people who are suffering the impacts of climate change. That's what you're doing. But in the future, you have to prepare them for situations which are you cannot adapt to in some places. They may not be able to continue to do that. Okay, they can do it for a while, but then they won't be able to do it for a long term. So the younger generation needs to be the investment place, capacity building, education, enabling them to be able to uh, even leave these professions, move somewhere else, be better off. Investment needs to be in the younger generation over the longer term time scale that I mentioned. So young people, girls and boys, particularly girls, in their younger age, teens, as they become adults, you prepare them for adulthood in a manner that is a climate relevant, climate resilient manner. And I know Mr. Mukit has been one of our most biggest champions in raising awareness. Raising awareness is extremely important. We need to be doing this at scale. And I commend Channel I for doing this. In fact, I remember Babu Bhai, he did a program on the first Gobeshona conference that we did. We had Professor Jean-Pascal from Belgium, who is in fact one of our keynote speakers in this conference. He came to Bangladesh. He was then the vice chair of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and Babu Bhai did a program interviewing him and myself in that first Gobeshona conference 7 years ago now. So he has been the champion of raising awareness for many years, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate and enable us to do this. So let me end by giving a sort of a direction of the way forward. As Rakib has already mentioned, there are several nature-based solutions is a big theme for the conference, as is locally led adaptation, and friendship does both. So it's a good link. We have several other sessions coming up. Let us join forces in these sessions and then plan what we can do afterwards. So I am very keen to get all of our session organizers to think long term, not just sharing and telling people what you're doing, but what do we do next and who do we do it with? And how can we bring people together to do something collectively, which is bigger than the sum of the parts? And if we can't do it collectively and make it bigger than the sum of the parts, then it is really, we are missing an opportunity in my view. We can do good things on our own, but they don't really add up unless we can all add them up, and we have to make a strategy for doing that. So one of the things that we have already started, and I invite everybody here to, many of you are already participating, but I invite you all to participate. And in fact, I will follow up with Babu Bhai to see whether we can do something with Channel I on that, is we have set up a Bangladesh nature-based solutions platform, a network, where we have already started accumulating information and putting stuff up. In fact, one of our colleagues, Dr. Hasib Irfanullah, has written a very nice article in today's Dhaka Tribune, which is up there, and we have sessions on this, as I said. So after the Gobeshona conference is over, I would like us to convene again with a bit more of a forward-looking planning. What can we do? What happened here? What did we learn? What additional sort of things that came up that enable us to take things forward, but with a planning perspective going forward. And the way I have described it in this Gobeshona conference theme and the opening session, I'm calling this a 10-year journey. We will take this journey together. Let us join forces to take this journey. Each of us are doing our own things, but by connecting with each other, we make our own work effective, more effective, and we make other people's work more effective. That's the hypothesis, is that the social capital of networking is a valuable resource that helps all of us. It's a mutually reinforcing, mutually beneficial way. It takes some time. So it's not free. You have to invest time and effort. But if you invest that time and effort, what you get out of it is actually more than what you put into it. And so that is my hypothesis, and that's what I am promoting as a joint effort, 10-year journey. I hope friendship is going to be with us. All the participants in this webinar and session today, I invite all of you to participate, and we will be thinking about how do we take this forward, and we will have a post-Gobeshona session to try and pull together all these thoughts and put them into a more substantive, action-oriented, taking our ideas forward together. So let me stop there and thank you all for an excellent session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Very much.
We are truly proud of you because you not only serving us, you're serving the whole world. And it's Gobeshona is a platform now connecting the continents. I don't know any other organizations or conference connecting continents through this virtual conference. So definitely your 3 points we are working on, humbly I'm sharing, we are working on this linking with stakeholders. We are connected with government, connected with development partners. And today's platform, if you see the IUC in here, researcher, PIDS here, Bukit Mojumdar, the media here. So We will expand this horizon much more than now. And if you remember, in October, we connected around more than 360 local NGOs in a platform, and we are hoping in these local NGOs will contribute significantly. They are the front fighter and frontliner. And short duration, humbly, that is the friendship, truly not really working projects based programming. We have program, and that's the reason behind Runapa started the Friendship International, so that I truly grateful to our Friendship International entities. So they actually are addressing the totally need-based solution. Like Mangrove, at this moment, we're aiming for 15 years programs, and definitely all our programs continuing as long as need there. So, and our development partners, I see Roland here from Sweden, many other development partners here, and they actually contribute to the program, not for any projects, to certain approaches, the supporting approach, supporting intervention, not really project. And staff also are recruited for particular intervention, particular programs. And young people, yes, your suggestion, we are thinking about your suggestion, what you made in 6th December, that is our flood volunteers, how they can work as a climate volunteer. Definitely we'll work together and how we can train them about as a climate fighter too. And thank you so much. Now I would like to close the session and truly grateful to Dr. Nazdin Appa, Mr. Makit Majumdar, our respected Mr. Rakibul Amin, Mark Ilvengar, and all other colleagues. And definitely thank you, Salimok sir, for giving us this opportunity. All the best. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Kazi.
you very
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.